Facebook. I don't know, like delete streams. What? What? What are you talking about? The Facebook? All right, that's weird. I think we're live. We are live. Okay, whatever. All right. This is Kearns. If you tell the MMA corner, and the reason, it is MMA. When you look at MMA involves everything, whether it's boxing, Muay Thai, or BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or even Taekwondo. Because let's face facts. Originally, the original MMA was what? People kicked and punched and did all this other crazy stuff. So we have with us today, my good friend, his indomitable spirit, okay, Taekwondo, Olympic Taekwondoist, Tim Scott from, you're in Nebraska?
Colorado.
Sorry. Colorado, lovely Colorado. And Tim and I met a number of weeks ago, probably a couple of years ago. We just didn't even know it. Number of weeks ago, back in May, at a conference speaking. It looks like the broadcast was deleted on Facebook. I don't really care. Anyway, let John deal with that. It's not my problem. And we met a few weeks ago. We had a speaker competition. We hit it off. So, Tim, give us kind of like a breakdown of, you went up there. You talked about your brother. We'll get into that. But you were literally on the Olympic Taekwondo team at what? USA Olympic Taekwondo team at what, 17?
So I was trying out for it. I didn't make the team, but I was working to be that level. And I was really just, that was my hope. That was my dream, for the longest time. And that's what I was working for the, better part of my young, late teens and early 20s.
Okay. So that was what year was that?
So I tried out in the year 2000, and then my main goal and hope was to really get on the 2014.
Mm-hmm. Now that goal didn't make it, but not long after that. Well, actually, long after that, you did get on the Olympic Taekwondo team. Was that for 2008?
No, I was never on the 2000 or never on the.
Olympic you weren't on the.
No,
but you almost made it at one point, though, right?
I was getting up to that level, but then I had some issues that kept me from being with the team and everything. So yeah.
So let's discuss that, because it was great learning from you and hearing from you that you said, cutting what people don't understand. I want the audience to understand this. And I don't think they get this clear. Look, MMA is all fine and dandy, but it's usually what? You either got a 3-month wait period for a fight, or 6 months, or maybe up to a year. So let's just discuss this, okay? So you started in 2004, worked all the way to get to 2008. So we're talking 4 years, right? 4 years to compete. Now, when you think about that, let's just discuss the amount. I mean, I want people to really understand that 4 years is a huge commitment to make and how much time are you really fighting on the mat?
Really what it comes down to is anyone, like many other people who had Olympic dreams like myself, in Taekwondo, in the art of Taekwondo, there are only certain weights that would make it into the Olympics. So if it wasn't your weight, you either had to gain, you either had to drop. But in Taekwondo, with, us being primarily a leg sport, people who are tall like me, tall and slim like me, when they would cut weight, that's why we would do that, is because we were fighting people at a lower weight class. And it just really, you're dropping so much weight for pretty much 8 to 9 minutes of fighting, and for so long too. And that's what was really tough about cutting weight.
So talked about that, the cutting weight. For how long were you cutting weight for?
Oh my gosh. A lot, if I knew what I knew now, it wouldn't be like this, but being young and dumb is what I like to say is.
Young, dumb, say, come! Excuse me.
I did it a very not smart way. And I just didn't really know how to about proper nutrition back then and everything. But for at least, the first couple months before that tournament, that fight off, whatever it was, you'd be cutting weight, and pretty much I'd be starving myself. I mean, like for me personally, again, being young and dumb, is that I would pretty much just starve myself, and it started showing. It really started showing in such an unhealthy way. Already being slim, and kind of skinny, is my cheeks would be sunken in. You know, my collarbone would stick out like an inch, and people would come up and tell me, hey, you're just not looking, you're strong and you're fast still and everything, but you're not looking the healthiest. And that's when I really just needed to, I kind of step back and just kind of say, wow, you know what? I really need to find out how to do this a little better, because it's definitely not working out.
I mean, when you really think about it, I don't think any of us really knew cutting weight back then. I mean, even when I was with my fighters, you know, we got into a science because there was all these different, well, no, do this, do this, do this. And it's like, yeah. And I think the toughest part is, you know, when we look at our fight sequence, like we've got, as you know, in my program, and we get strength, hypertrophy, explosive power, then gas in the tank, which is sports specific.
Yeah.
So if I don't do my base phases earlier and build the base, or what I call the basement, you get into the sports specific when they're cutting weight and you're doing 2 a days, right? Sometimes maybe even more than 2 a day.
Yeah, at least.
And you got to be really careful. So what we call it is you got to keep their powder dry. So I've got to be able to burn enough calories, not kill them, and keep them in fight shape. Not an easy formula at all. Now,
not at all.
And at the Olympic level, we're talking different because this is going on not for like 6 months, 3 months, or not even a year. We're talking 4 years to get to that point of 9 minutes.
Yeah.
9 minutes in your life. You know, I always equate this to like Rulon Gardner, which I love that whole story because I think I don't know if you remember that, but I think it was 2004 or 2008 that we never had beaten the Russians in heavyweight Olympic wrestling.
Yeah.
And the Russian looked like the heavyweight looked like Dolph Lundgren. And here's this guy with still cut, and he's a pig farmer, and he smashes them.
Yes.
And they ask him, what do you do to lift weights? I pick up pigs. And you just kind of go, you pick up what? You pick up pigs. And I think a lot of that people don't realize. You know, when you look at, one of my favorite movies is, I think it was Miracles on Ice or whatever it was, where they took college kids in the 70s, and Kurt Russell was the coordinator. They took high-level college athletes because we never beat the Russians.
Yeah.
In hockey, and they got them together, and he knew he had the idea of the formula that if they put them together as a team, they could work. And when you think about fighting, even though it's your team sport, it's still a team of one, isn't it? Because it's only you out there fighting at that time. It's not like, hey, I'm passing the puck.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim, high five me. Going, coach, you're next. Like, it's not tag team wrestling.
And, you know, that's one thing that I always absolutely loved, even from a young age. You know, I was a natural track athlete, basketball, and I loved the individual sport of Taekwondo ever since a very, very young age. I always did that while I did my other sports. And even though I never got that Olympic dream, I was living in that world around Olympians, training with them, you know, going to the tournaments and, you know, chasing the same dreams that we all had and that so many young people have nowadays even. And I'm not sorry that I didn't make it, but that living that life was just absolutely amazing to me. But there were ups and downs, like the weight cutting, like the great part to me, in my opinion, was it was no one else's fault but my own. If I was going to succeed, it was going to be because I had the determination, the capability, the willingness, the know-how, the perseverance, the indomitable spirit, like I talk about, to go and freaking do it. And if I didn't, guess what? Then it was all on me, and I couldn't blame anyone else. And I really was drawn to that part. I was really drawn to that part of it.
That's an excellent segue into what I want to talk about next. Because how old are you now, Tim? 30s?
39.
So you're 39, and when you think about it, I'm 56 now. Hey, just last week, right? And I don't lift weights. I don't do curls for girls. People are amazed by that. When you think about that, right? And I think, you know, you're only 15 years younger than me, 16 years younger than me, and we've seen this transition. Especially, I mean, you've got what, like 300 students, so you've got a high student body of kids, everything else.
Yes.
This lack of personal responsibility, you know, where in an individual sport, even though you're part of the team, and I've worked with Team Mitchell before, even though you're part of the team, you're still, when you're in the ring, man, you're fighting on your own.
Yes.
It's either shit or get, let's face facts.
Yes.
The rubber meets the road or you're done, you know? You can't say, well, Brady threw the pass wrong, or, my whatever. You can't say that.
Absolutely.
You just can't say that. And I think when it comes to me, as you know, my story, I tell people I was the original Karate Kid. My father died at age 12. That's his ring, and I got into martial arts. I got picked on every day. And if I didn't find martial arts, which is now 44 years now, I would have never survived.
Yeah.
Strength training, then turned into exercise physiology, and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's that whole thing, the sport. Even though you were a team, you were still, as you said, I'm a team of one, because I either get in the ring and I do my job or I haven't.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you look at gymnastics, right? When you look at gymnastics, they're a team, but still,
it's individual. It's just them.
Individual. It's not. It's a team sport, but it's not a team sport. I think that's the toughest thing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, Tim lost points in this. Now I got to make up the difference. What do you mean I got to make up the difference? So, and it's similar to when you think about it at UFC level, MMA level. You have all these intricate parts. You've got your striking coach, your grappling coach, your conditioning coach. So you're relying on these guys, but at the end of the day, when you step in that ring, if you fuck up,
it's done.
It's all on you.
Yeah. It's all you. It's all you.
And I think that's in this society now with this point and click. I can say what I want. You and I discuss this a lot in Niagara Falls. Oh, just say what. Oh yeah, screw off. We can't stand it. It's like, you know what? The way you grew up and I grew up, if you couldn't say it to their face, don't say it at all.
Exactly.
Right? As we quoted Mike Tyson, you and I quoted at the same time, I think that day. The plan all works until you get punched in the face.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is.
Now, I'll share my thoughts with you on this. What I find very gratifying, intriguing, mesmerizing, and constantly in martial arts that, when I think of what I love about martial arts, besides the discipline, the honor, the integrity, and the character, is the adaptability. So can you touch on some of your favorite principles behind or aspects or what you love about martial arts so much?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, I was exposed to martial arts, very, very young age. And like I've shared before in my story is that I knew from the age of 4, pretty much what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. I just didn't know how. And that was martial arts. I was going to be in martial arts. I was going to be a fighter. And even though I loved fighting, all the ups and downs about it, even the getting hurt and everything, it was just all part of the process. It was part of the journey. But really what goes behind the martial arts, whether you're in a traditional martial art, more of the art side, more of the combative side, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. There's beauty in it all, and there's application in all of it. But what I love is that you can take it absolutely anywhere. You can take martial arts anywhere. That's why I'm not sorry. I don't regret not making the Olympic team. I don't, because if I did, my life wouldn't be where it is right now. I took martial arts into my business, and I wasn't raised with an entrepreneur spirit. I wasn't raised with business ownership. We didn't make a lot of money when I was growing up, and I'm from very, very small, poor town in Nebraska, but I took that martial arts training. I took all that indomitable spirit, that courtesy, that integrity, that perseverance, that self-control, and I started flourishing in my leadership, and I started flourishing in my business.
Exactly.
And everything that I went through in the ring, losing, winning, getting hurt, getting knocked out, knocking other people out, that is all just a metaphor for life and for entrepreneurship and business ownership, in my opinion. Absolutely. And I wanted to really just take all of that I went through, which other people have gone through as well. And I wanted to help other people, learn from those experiences. And that's what I love about martial arts, is that it is a lifestyle. It is not just something you do twice a week. It is you. You are martial arts.
I love how you brought that up, because it's a great segue, because when you really look at one of our big inspirations, right? Bruce Lee, right?
Oh yeah.
He wanted to show the beauty of martial arts, and he was one of the first people that combined philosophy with martial arts.
Yeah.
And when people look at me, like my ex-wife would say, if you could bottle your discipline, like Eric Thompson would say, once motivation dies, discipline has to come in.
Has to.
And like Joe Rogan said, he goes, I'm the laziest disciplined person you'll ever meet. And I think I know Joe a little bit from Mark Delagrati, and I heard he literally cried because it took him 12 years to get his black belt in BJJ because of his schedule. He was just like, it was just impossible. But he goes, I had to keep going. I had to keep going. Had to keep going. I mean, hence, where is it? I mean, that's the Thai tattoo. Sumbak Sumbam, be relentless. It's just me.
Yeah.
And I find it, besides, I don't even call it besides. I mean, I think every child should get into that, because as you and I both know, and I forget who coined the term, and not to be, what's it called? Fire and brimstone, or the guy with the sickle, whatever it is, Grim Reaper, cradle to grave.
Yeah.
So not to make cradle, get them to grave. And even if okay, they're 5 and they're doing this, so what? What are they building? It's discipline. It's discipline. Not to mention, as you and I both agree, okay, honor, character, self-control. Like when I go out and do my anti-bullying talks, I tell people, it goes to the 4 S's: speak up, stand up, stay together, self-defense. When people hear self-defense, like, I go, self-defense is spiritual, mental, emotional before it ever gets physical.
Yes.
Ever gets physical. Just you as I both know, like the minute you walked up, he's a martial artist. And you're like, he's a martial artist. We could just tell who's who in the room.
Yeah.
It's like this confidence. It's like, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do this. I mean, besides fighting in the ring, you've probably been in maybe 2 fights in your whole life?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just from being young and dumb again.
and even me, I think I shared this story with you when I was in New York 4 years ago. Ex-girlfriend was with, almost started something, and I'm like, and you and I were adding it up. I'm like, we're at a rooftop bar on the 14th floor. The wall was 3 feet high. It's 11 o'clock at night. There's beer bottles and wine glasses, everything. And she starts, I'm like, are you kidding me? She's like, well, he said he could kick your ass. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
In the Filipino martial arts, it's, in the Filipino martial arts, what they say is, this is just a talking piece.
Yeah. Yep.
We don't care about that. Now, beyond that, and I would say, the other thing, which you'll probably agree with me, is one of my favorite things is relationships built on the mat last forever, don't they?
Forever. There's a brotherhood, a sister, just brother-sister relationship that just you can go years without seeing each other, and then you can just pick it right back up like nothing ever, no time passed at all.
Exactly. Now, walk us through going from Nebraska, poor family, to Colorado.
Yeah. And we didn't make the most money as far as financials, but we were very rich in family. I do have to say, because I have an amazing family and support. Yes, but when I was 16 years old, and I went through to the Open 2000 Olympic trials, and kind of got my handed to me a little bit, but it was such a great experience though, because it just lit that fire. Then really, I was traveling out to Colorado to the Olympic Training Center about once a month, doing some just athlete development programs that they were putting on and everything, which I'm very, very grateful for. And I got to know some of the Olympic coaches and everything. And I ended up, just when I was 20 years old, just saying, you know what, I'm not gonna go anywhere from here where I'm at right now. In order to get where I want to be, I have to do things I've never done before. And that's one of my favorite sayings, is just, and right there is, you have to do things you've never done before in order to do things you've never done before.
That's a great thing, because as you know, one of the big things, besides martial arts and the Burma Kearns conditioning system that I do, my big thing is, as you know, is yoga for now 14 years. And my favorite things in yoga, and it's right with martial arts. I consider yoga a martial art anyway.
Oh yeah.
In a certain degree, because of the discipline, the balance, and the other thing, I think what people don't realize in martial arts, and you'll probably agree with this, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes, absolutely. And that's kind of what led to me, just at 20 years old, just picking everything up, leaving my family, my close friends, everything, for a young adult, and just move. I just moved. I knew one person that was the Olympic coach, and just through programs and everything, it wasn't even like a crazy personally. I just went there, and I found a job one weekend, found an apartment another weekend, and boom, I was there. I was at his school training, and then he eventually hired me not long after that, and we just started training. That's what we did. Is I was living the life I wanted to. I wanted to eat. I wanted to train. I wanted to work, and that was it. And that's what was going on. And I was living my life that I wanted to live. So I just went for it.
It's funny that you say that, because me versus you, I went, believe it or not, I know this is going to be shocking. I went to school, so I'm going to really date myself here.
Okay.
When I was at school, high school, we had the first Apple Macintosh.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Yeah, 84. So we're thinking, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll go into computer programming. I had no idea about going into exercise physiology, becoming a personal, none of it. Zero. But there's an old quote, and I'm sure you know it: when your heart speaks, take good notes. Or I say, when your heart speaks, shut the fuck up and listen.
Yeah.
Right? So what ends up happening, long story short, I end up getting into the exercise physiology program backhandedly, so it's kind of weird. And then that led to doing my internship with one of the first personal trainers in Boston. I'm like, I got a knack for this. So when I started my company, I was living in Everett with my mother, just graduated, and my girlfriend at the time, which ended up becoming my wife, now ex-wife, she was on the South Shore, 30 minutes the other way. I ended up moving to Pembroke, 45 minutes away from my mother. I had a 500 square foot studio apartment, couldn't afford it. So what I did was I took care of a stroke patient 3 hours a day on the property. So I'm cleaning up piss and poop. Started my company, was working at Boston Athletic Club, which I got a job as a fitness trainer, and I was actually training people. And then I had a patent on a product in the market. I had 4 jobs because I just went, screw it.
Yep.
And I can't tell you, just like you, how many times I'm like, this just spoke, and I'm like, I got to do it. I got to do it. And sometimes you just got to sit there and go, excuse the French, screw it and do it.
Yep.
Do it. Like, look at our competition, right? I was the first one out of the gate twice. And I'm like, I don't know what they're looking for. Who the judges are. And you're like, okay, man, you rock that, man. I'm like, I hope so, Tim, because I don't know what. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. So it's a matter of, and I think one of the things in martial arts, it really pushes that spirit, like you said, indomitable spirit, to go, you know what? I'm uncomfortable with this. This makes me feel weird. I'm scared, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, can you talk about some times that you were like, really like, I'm scared, but I'm going to do this. I have to do this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's moving away from my family and being like pretty much one of the first one in my family to move away. I was scared, but at the same time I was, and I knew I had power behind me. I knew, my faith is a huge part of my life.
Absolutely.
But it's a lot of people, well, even right now, I'm kind of going through that right now, because you have these, famous marketers, you have these people in business who are, just very big in the game right now, speaking and everything. They're telling me, Tim, no, you got to get rid of the word indomitable. Nobody knows what it means. And so they're going to get confused. And I understand that. I really do. But at the same time, I'm going to take your phrase and say, you know what, screw it and do it. I'm going to keep this because this is my life word that was put upon me from a very young age of even 4 years old. That indomitable spirit literally means impossible to overcome, subdue, or defeat. And that's how I want to live, and that's how I want other people to live, instead of being entitled, instead of just having everything handed to them. That's what we need to do, is get that indomitable spirit inside of people so that they will not rely on the government for money, not rely on other people just to hand them business, and really that word honor the struggle. They have to honor the struggle.
Or as they say, let me see, Yuki, part of the Bushido code, integrity.
Absolutely.
Right? Integrity. So I love how you brought that up and it segued into that, because screw them, right? So what? So you have to explain yourself, and why not?
Yeah.
Why not? So what? Maybe they need to learn that word. And I agree with you on the fact of, with all the government, they're going to pay for my education, going to pay for, really? You and I didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
Right? I had to borrow money and go to school and pay it back.
Yep.
I had to borrow money, and I'm sure you might have run into the same problem. I had to borrow money to survive COVID after I lost 80% of my business.
Yeah. I
mean, come on. And I'm paying it back. So, this whole hand it to you on a platter, give me a break. Do some work.
Yeah. And it's really, if something is handed to you, you are not going through what you have to do in order to grow and get that experience. So, and nobody wants, one of my favorite things is that nobody wants a leader with no scars. And it's the truest thing out there, because if everything's just handed to you, you're not going to be a great leader. You'll get to a certain level, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to be a great leader because you haven't been through it yourself.
Well, and like, like one of my lines, I got it from Eric Thompson: what you go through, you grow through.
Yes.
Like my story, people like, wow, man, you lost your dad at 12. I'm so sorry. Yeah, but I wouldn't be who I am.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you had a messy divorce and you were depressed and tried to commit suicide. Yeah. And what did I learn from it?
Yeah.
Resiliency, perseverance. I lived my philosophy. I lived my philosophy, and I realized, and I'm going to admit this because I know you have my book. I'm going to admit this. There is a stigma, and I had it with mental illness, as you know. And we've discussed this, because it's like, especially for men, oh no, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You're too sensitive. You're this, you're that. Suck it up, right? And it's like, yeah, man, I've met guys. we're talking some tough mother, you know what?
Yeah.
Military, law enforcement, SWAT, bawling their eyes out because they've just kept it locked in.
Yep.
The stories they tell, and then this and that and the other thing. And it's like, yeah, man, and one of the things I tell everybody is this. One of my favorite quotes, I think it's anonymous: courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is having to do what you have to do in the face of fear.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a movie buff, right? I don't know if you know that, but one of my favorite scenes in a movie, it's Fury. I don't know if you remember the scene.
I don't.
Okay. So Brad Pitt's this tank commander, tough, rough and tumble, get the scars on him, the whole bit. And he's been killing Nazis in Africa. Now he's all the way killing Nazis in Germany. And the movie starts where they literally cleaning up brain parts for his machine gunner, and they get a pencil pusher and they put him in there, and they're mean to him the whole 9 yards. And they're trying to break him in, but they're hardened battle warriors. And at one point now they're in, and people don't really realize, in World War II, the only reason we beat the Germans is because they had better equipment, but we mass produced.
Yeah.
The German tank was a joke to a Panzer. It was like a firecracker.
Yep.
You had to hit that just right. Well, they're in Germany, and they're in a no-win situation, and they're loading up and everything else, and they've gone through a bunch of battles. And Brad Pitt says, I'm going to go to the, he's the sergeant, he's the tank commander. I'm going to go get our orders. He goes, he's got a cigarette. He walks behind, and there was no words he said, none. He goes behind the tent, takes a knee, and starts bawling his eyes out for 30 seconds. And you see him go, okay. And it's like, I'm like, I just got to keep going.
Yep.
That, in the essence, is what it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Absolutely.
Like, people like, oh, you're afraid, but you're not supposed to be afraid. You talk to, and Mark Delagrati shared this with me. He's in Thailand on the beach. Now, you know who Mark is, right? He's in Thailand on the beach. He's knocked people out in Lumpini Stadium, the stadium, as a round eye. He has. He's like, I'm on the beach with a belly full of rice and a sunburn, and they come up to me, crew, you got to fight tonight. He's like, okay. He goes out. Now, we see the video like 2 weeks later, and he literally neck kicked the guy, knocked the guy out. He goes, most relaxed I've ever been. He's like, most relaxed I've ever been. I got like a half a joint. The whole. I'm like, okay. He goes, but yeah, everybody feels fear at some point. It's not like abnormal. It's, can you control it?
Yes.
Now, talk briefly about, you went to try to make the Olympic team the second time, and you were close. And what happened to your back?
So we were a week out from the open trials, and I've been training. I was going up to just like many of my fellow competitors, 5, 6, 7 hours a day, and we're pushing everything. We're pushing our limits. We're pushing our bodies, everything. And then all of a sudden, during practice, during some situational motions, my back just goes. It just goes, and I couldn't move. And I was just laying on the ground. That's all I could do for about a week. I could just lay in the ground. And I missed the trials, and I was pretty heartbroken. And really, what do we do as athletes is we say, okay, all right, here's the next one. I got it all out. I asked people why. I asked God why. I asked for help. Talked to mentors, coaches, everything. It's life. It is life. That's what happens. And, there's a lot of people that would say, well, Tim, don't you regret not making, the team or going further? Don't you regret, not taking care of yourself better? Maybe every great once in a while, but overall, no, because that's not my plan. Because what was revealed to me in the next few years was actually much more of an important fight in my mind. So
there you go. And it's interesting that you say that. I love the way you come into that, because it's true. Because there's a couple great quotes, and one of them is from Dr. Wayne Dyer, which I think he got from Lao Tzu, because I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
Don't try to make sense out of a senseless situation, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, look, unfortunately, people's kids die before them. Doesn't make sense. It's not how it's supposed to work, but that's nature.
Yeah.
Stuff just happens, right? And I think a lot of times, we look at it like I wrote an article, I think I sent it to you, but I posted on LinkedIn, overprotection, not recommended. It's like, my father grew up, there was climbing ropes.
Yeah.
And they took him out because little Johnny burnt his hands.
Yeah.
Like a Bosu, who would I use on the dark, the bubble side down and the flat side up, it says not recommended. Oh, because somebody rolled their ankle. Well, guess what, dummy?
Yeah.
It's actually for balance.
Exactly. It's one of the best things for you, actually.
Exactly. So I look at that and I just shake my head. I go, okay. So one day I'll share this. I'm with a client in Cambridge one day, about a year or two ago. And we're at a community center. And this little girl comes out. She's 9. They dropped her off. She's climbing up on the monkey bars, climbing on the swing set. And I'm just watching her. She's smiling the whole time, falls down a couple times. I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do. It's like I think I mentioned to you, one of my famous talks is, how do you know what sharp is until you cut yourself? How do you know what hot is until you burn yourself? How do you know what failure is until you fall flat in your face? And I'll take a page from Dr. Wayne Dyer. Is it failure, or did you just produce some results you didn't anticipate?
Yeah. And, one thing that we say on the John Maxwell team is, there's winning and there's learning. Sometimes we win, sometimes we learn.
I take a page from Les Brown. There are winners and losers, and some people have not been taught how to win.
Yes. Yeah.
They just haven't.
Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, you and I can do the ratio, right? I think you probably know the stats just like me. People that win the lottery become broke in 7 years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then the people that even you look at Bill Gates and some of the multimillionaires, they didn't give them a lot of money. They gave them so much money, and then it's like they're going to have to figure it out. Because like you said, when it's handed to you, it's not work.
Yeah.
Like I love Matthew McConaughey. If anything worth doing is worth breaking a sweat.
Yep. Absolutely. Anything worthwhile is uphill, right?
And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be. That's why I love Matthew McConaughey's 13 Truths. Life was never meant to be easy. Whoever told you that lied.
Yep.
Or, I love the fact when you brought in personal responsibility. What's some of the challenges that you've seen with COVID now coming back to full board schools with kids? What kind of challenges have you seen with the young people now?
Oh, actually a lot of delayment, just being delayed as far as social interactions, being able to relate to people emotionally on a social level. That's one thing that we are actually getting a lot of right now in my schools, is that, hey, my kid's, 9 years old, but I mean, there's no friends right now. COVID really took a emotional toll on them. All they did, we didn't have anything to do. So all we could do was watch TV, play video games, just get on there. And you know what? People just don't know what to do sometimes. And we're seeing a lot of that. Teachers right now are seeing a lot of just even speech delay, and just simple things like that, just because they didn't have to practice it. They didn't have to go out and do it. They weren't forced to do it. And so it really, really took that kind of a toll on our society. And that's one thing that we really try to work on in my schools, my Taekwondo schools, and in the Indomitable business, my coaching business, is that, we need to learn how to communicate so we connect with people authentically and, go through kind of those awkward social situations and learn how to communicate through them. Because everyone's always like, oh, you need to focus on your sales and your business. You need to focus on this. No. You need to learn who you can help, what problems you solve, and how to communicate that. And guess what? That's life too. It's not just sales, it's life.
EQ versus IQ, right?
Exactly.
One of my favorite stories about, and I know you've read this a bunch of times. That's great stuff, Tim. Was Dale Carnegie talking about Andrew Carnegie. I don't know if you know this story. You probably do. So if nobody knows this, they should know this. Andrew Carnegie, literally, there was no buildings over 5 stories until like the 1920s, 1930s, right? Because he bought the smelting process of a bullet manufacturer in Germany and then took a chance. And he was a little 5'3", Scottish kid. And when the factories were cranking, Dale, his nephew, remembers this. He says, one day my uncle walked into the factory and the night manager was showing him this, showing him this, showing him that. And Andrew was just, And he looked at me, leaned in. He says, how many rolls of steel, because steel comes in rolls, did the night crew do? And the manager says, 6. He goes, okay. Walks over, grabs a piece of chalk, writes a huge 6 in the middle of the production floor. Hands the manager the chalk, walks away. The day crew comes in. Now the day manager says, what's this? What's this 6? Oh, that's how many rolls of steel the night crew did. Oh, really? Now the night manager comes in. Now there's a 7. Within weeks, without saying a word, he increased production by 30%. They were doing 12 rolls of steel.
That's awesome.
I mean, and that's what I try to tell people. I go, yelling is one thing. It's fine. Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't work. I go, learning how to press the right angles, like Jocko would say, you really don't know a human spirit till you tear them down and you have some serious difficulties, whether it be a disease, whatever it is. You really kind of understand a person's spirit when it's like in my book, there's light in the tunnel. Rock bottom's a good foundation to stand on. That's one thing I learned from Les Brown. So I agree with you that these kids are like missing a step because, number one, as you know, I know in sales, the first thing that breaks down a barrier is a smile.
Yes.
Now you get a mask. It's like, okay. I'm like, well, that's great. What good is that? And then I agree with you too. It's like kids need to get sick. This is how they build immunity, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Now, with your Taekwondo, talk about that whole, you didn't go there, you didn't make it, then all of a sudden, boom, you transition into, I'm going to teach, I'm going to have schools. This is my calling. When did that kind of hit you?
So, I've always been just a natural teacher at heart, but yet I failed public speaking miserably in high school. I hated it. I was deathly afraid of it, but I knew that I loved teaching. And that's one thing that Taekwondo always did for me, is that I could get up there and I could teach anybody anything like that.
Dance.
Yes, I can. I am a dancer. Yes, too. And, it's just, I knew that after the 2004 Olympics and my back injury and everything, and didn't making it, watching these people that I compete with, have trained with before, go on and be in the big show, I couldn't just sit there. I've never been just one just to sit there and sulk forever.
Really?
Yeah. And so I really started getting into leadership, and I started falling in love with all of these things on leadership, on just, John Maxwell, Tony Robbins, not even him at first, but just all the foundational things that I was missing, but I was actually kind of doing in the background anyway. I was like, oh man, these things are just amazing. You mean I could be more efficient? I could touch people's lives more if I was just a better leader? Oh, you mean if I actually fixed my nutrition and took care of myself, I could actually be leading by example and help others do that as well? Oh, if I, not make a super high income, but focused on helping as many other people as I can get to their hopes and dreams, that the money will just actually naturally come, to be honest with you. I can do that. That's a thing. And then I just absolutely fell in love with it. And I started forming. I was running 3 locations for my grandmaster in Taekwondo at one time. And we were doing really well, but I just knew that there was something more for me, or something different for me, and that I was going to go out on my own. So I actually just, once I got my 4th degree in Taekwondo, I stopped. I, parted ways, graciously and everything, and got into ministry for a couple of years, but then found another side of leadership that I absolutely loved, that I needed to go through. And then I opened my own schools, because it was always martial arts for me. That was always the plan. And I started to open my first school, and it took off. We did very well, even though I sucked at sales at the time. I was just sitting there waiting for students to come to me. That's not what it's supposed to be. Well, I didn't know anything about pre-sales. I just didn't do it. But it just grew with such amazing people coming and going in and out of our lives that it was such a natural thing for me just to go on and now use that martial arts, use all that leadership training to go out and become a speaker for me, because I knew that I was deathly afraid of it at one point. So I'm going to go meet it straight on. Now I can speak in front of anybody. I love coaching other business people who, maybe they don't want to do martial arts right now, but we can still use martial arts principles to improve their life.
I appreciate that. That's a very key point. Same as me.
Yeah.
I always knew, like, when I graduated from college in 1990, my original elevator speech goal was, I want to help end obesity one step, one person at a time through every possible media channel. This was in 1990. Had no idea about doing my basement tapes. Had no idea about doing my workout. Had no idea about the UFC, but I took chances.
Yeah.
Right now, we're actually reproducing my MMA conditioning basement tape series. I have a company that wants me to redo them. People have been bugging me for 14 years because I have so much new content, and they're backing me 100%. I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And same as you, I love the coaching aspect. Now, sales, I was lucky because I used to have a paper route. So you had to, and then I worked at my uncle's flea market, and he sold tools, but I was the low barrier point. Hey, buy an axial. So at 12, I learned, and my father was very good at building rapport I learned a lot from my father and my mother, very good at building rapport right away.
Yeah.
And my first boss in personal training said, you're really good at building rapport. Your organization needs work, but rapport. Now in sales, I learned over time that in sales, all you're really doing, and people are like, well, this used car sale, blah, blah, blah. I go, sales is about fulfilling a need.
Yes.
That's all it is. Are there pain points? Do I hit people's pain points? Yeah. I'll give you an example. I'm 56. My target market is the 40 and up, mostly men. And the first thing I said to them, and they're like, well, you're expensive and you da-da-da. I go, yeah, I am. And I said, okay, what did you spend on your last vacation? $15,000. I said, okay, were you comfortable taking your shirt off on the beach? And they hit a long pause. So now if you spent that same money with me over a year and you'd be comfortable taking your shirt off, I said, I have no problem taking my shirt off since I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
I've always worked out. So I go, great, you made all this money, but you're not enjoying it. The other thing I say to people too, especially high-level business people, I go, look, I'm going to teach you how to make this into a lifestyle. And every time you work out is a deposit in your fitness IRA.
Yes.
Because what good is the money? And I tell them, I go, the Egyptians figure it out. You can't take it with you.
Yep.
It goes bye-bye. And I don't know about you, but I'm like, if they want to take me, the Grim Reaper, I'm going to go down fighting.
Yes.
And but I'm the same way. Like public speaking, like when I did my first seminar, I'm going to shit myself. I'm like, I don't know what. And then you just kind of like, you get in a route. Because you're probably like me. You remember a lot of things, right?
Yep.
You kind of get into this thing. And then when I started doing workshops in fitness, I'm like, I think I told you the first time I had like 250 people. I'm getting crickets. And then finally I just went, screw it and do it. And that was it.
Yep.
Even like when Jesse said, we're going to put you on first. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, crap. I'm like, I don't even know what they're looking for. I'm like, okay. And I just kind of pull it out of you just pull it out of your ass.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes that's the best things. So I know we've been on for a while. I don't want to keep you longer. If you can sum it up in a few phrases of what's your best advice for any athlete who may be torn down or retired or thinking about something or starting something, kind of like, in line with Indomitable Spirit. Can you kind of go with that? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one thing that I always wanted to do was never be a former athlete. And yeah, in the technical sense, I might be a former athlete because I don't compete anymore, but I'm still an athlete. I am 100% still an athlete. I live the athlete lifestyle. I train multiple times a day. I take care of myself. But the thing is, that is a parallel to life. Okay? It doesn't matter if you made the big game. It doesn't matter if you won, if you lost, if you got knocked out, if you were embarrassed. That's okay because that's just one time. It's just one time. And so guess what? It's the process. We see so many professional athletes nowadays
Process.
just they fall. They fall after they're done. They have no idea what to do. So many Olympians, they have no idea what to do after. And really take all of that that you went through, that you learned, your story, as we call it, and put it into helping other people and becoming the leader that you were created to be. And when you do that, you're going to be unstoppable. You're going to be indomitable.
I love how you put that. Like everything that you did to get you there, why not reprogram it for other people? It's kind of like, as you can tell, Rocky, right?
Oh yeah.
Do you know the story real quick behind Rocky?
I do a little bit. Yeah.
That it was the belly-out brawler.
Yeah. Oh, actually, no. Tell me about that.
So Stallone, I'll send you the clip. It's about 10 minutes long. So Stallone was in an apartment, and it was so small he could sit in the bed and open the door and the window. And he wanted to act. And he started writing all these stories. And he moved out to LA, and it wasn't going well. And, you know, he actually saw the fight between the belly-out brawler, who had something like 100 bare-knuckle fights. And he fought Ali, legit, with gloves on. And this belly-out brawler had 100 bare-knuckle fights and won them. So he was considered a stumble bum, like a warm-up fighter. He knocked Ali down twice. And when Stallone saw that, he says, this guy just crystallized. This guy who was has-been knocked the champ down twice.
Yep.
He goes, that's a metaphor. So when he went in to when Stallone went in to try for another part, the guy's like, you're not right for this part. He goes, okay. He goes, well, I write too, and I write things about wrestlers and boxers. He goes, well, bring it in. So Stallone said, he goes, I tell all the actors and writers, you never know what's going to strike a nerve. You just never know. And when people don't realize, and you'll find this very interesting. I just told somebody this last night. There were no sequels before Rocky. Not one. When he made it, and he made Rocky 2, that's exactly what happened to him. Using what you just said, the story, what happened to him after Rocky 1 came out, because he won, 8 Academy Awards? He's getting flooded with all this crap, and he got overwhelmed and lost sight of it. So he actually said, I'm going to write a movie, what happened to me, and put it in Rocky 2. Nice. So same idea, right? Why not take all that training? Okay, you didn't make it to the Olympics. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. So what? What if that knowledge can garner you to the next level?
Yes.
It's like, have you seen The Underdog with Kurt Warner?
Yes.
Phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
Here's this guy. I have to make it. He gets cut, right? And he's like 30, and he's like, what do you mean? And then that one coach who took 10 years off, I'm going to give you a shot.
Yeah.
That's all. And the guy's like in the Hall of Fame now,
That's awesome.
I mean, you just look at that and you say, look, man, look at Rudy. The guy he played one game.
Yeah, exactly.
And they made a movie.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important that you say that. Look, okay, you're never a former athlete. You're an athlete. Like David Goggins said, just because I'm retired doesn't mean I'm retired.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna be the baddest man on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way it is.
And
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Sensei Scott, thank you for your time and your effort. Tell Heather I said, hey, how's her hip coming?
It's going well. It's coming along.
Excellent. I know we'll talk again because we're working on some stuff for you and I in the fall. So Woody Cup, thank you for coming on. I know you're still working on more baseball bats breaking, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What are we up to now?
I've got two at one time. Yep. Want to get up to three.
All right. I'll remind myself to, if we go at it, I'm just going to have my collie stick.
There you go.
All right, Tim. Thank you very much, brother.
Hey, thank you so much.
Cheers.